Hello, good evening, and welcome to the live Monday night special from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is, of course, Courtroom Confidential, where we try to present to you both sides of the courtroom as best we can. And I feel like I'm in a unique position to do that because my name is Josh Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office, and I'm now a criminal defense attorney. So thank you so much for joining us on a Monday. We have a very special show for you because we've got a special guest. We have Mike King from Profiling Evil is going to be on to chat with us a little bit about the James Craig case. James Craig is the Colorado dentist who completely lost his ever-loving mind and poisoned his wife. She died. Then while he was in jail, he decided he was going to go about trying to plant some evidence. And then when that didn't work out, he took it upon himself to perhaps kill the detective involved in the case. Mike King has been following it very closely, so we're going to get into all of that with him. And we're also excited to have him because he's got a brand new book out called Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. And what I love about it and how it fits into this evening is the part of the trailer material or promotional material for it says that it pulls back the curtain on the dark world of criminal predators, those who exploit, manipulate, and destroy from behind masks of normalcy. And that's exactly what James Craig was. He was a person posing to have a very normal life. So we'll get into all of that. Of course, stay to the end. We have announcements for you. We'll try to use some more of our time to get into some updates on other cases that you've been following. Hello to everybody who's already here, Kathleen Craghead and Afton and Susan D and Jersey Tomato and Shy Gal and Kathy. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. Hello also to everybody who's watching on X and Facebook. We appreciate you all, and everybody who's here on replay. Those of you, I'm speaking to you in the future. Those on replay, thank you for being here. Laura Waldy, thank you so much for the gift of a membership. Appreciate you. Farm Girl, appreciate you for gifting a membership. I love it. Jay Mofo for gifting a membership. I love it when everybody makes it rain right at the beginning. So thank you guys so much for creating such a great mood. Let's get Mike on here so I can stop yammering away. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Josh. Thanks for having me back. I was so giddy. This is visit number 2 on your show, and I'm just so happy, and you're just tearing it up. It's great, and it's so fun to see such kind comments coming in.
Oh, the community that we have here on this channel is the absolute best. Everybody's so kind. Everybody's so nice. Everybody keeps me in line. They'll call me out if I get something wrong because they all follow these cases closely. So I don't want to say it's all just a cheerleading squad, but for the most part, it is everybody is just in a great mood when we get on here and chat about stuff. And Mike, they're a big fan of you. So thank you for being here. It is time number 2. Last time we interviewed you and it was all about you. Now we're going to use all of your criminal investigatory resources to talk about this. What do we call this guy? A psychopath, a sociopath, an absolute losing his mind type of individual, James Craig. Tell me just kind of your initial broad stroke thoughts on this guy in this case.
Well, thank you. You know, and I when you were saying that, I had a flashback. I had the opportunity. Well, I've had the opportunity for the last 30 plus years to work very closely with some of the professors at Harvard University. One in particular, Dr. Harold Birchstand, who is a dear friend, psychiatrist, and is in charge of, I don't know if you've seen Harvard's program in psychology and psychology and the law, but I've had the chance to collaborate with Harold for years. We actually worked on the King Tut Discovery special that we won an Emmy Award for, which was really fun.
Emmy
but
Award.
Harold,
I'm going to introduce you as Emmy
yeah,
Award
you got it.
winning
Yeah.
Mike King.
Well, no, I think the important thing is how many people have solved a 3,000-year-old cold case. So, you know, that's the really important.
Not many.
But Harold always taught me, because I always would ask the same question, Josh, about, you know, is this a psychopath or a sociopath?
Yeah.
And he kind of always taught me that it's psychopathic personality traits, you know, that it may be a little broader, because I certainly am not an expert on this, other than I know when behavior is outside of societal norms. And more importantly, when the behavior, when an event occurs and then immediately after is outside of it. And you look at some of these kinds of predators that you and I have dealt with in our careers, and now we talk about on this show. And bottom line is, I don't know if they're crazy or if they're psychopathic or what, but what I do know is that in all of these circumstances, it seems to me that they understand what society's norms are, that it's against the law to kill your wife, and yet
Right.
they'll choose to do it anyway.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. It's not that they're so untethered to reality that they don't know it's wrong. They know it's wrong. I mean, he obviously knows what he's doing is wrong. He's trying to cover it up. He's trying to get out of suffering the consequences of it. But that's really what distinguishes them, is that they don't care. They do it anyways because they're so selfish or narcissistic or just driven by their own desires to get what they want, that they really don't care the kind of damage that they cause. I mean, look at this guy. He's got a wife. They've been married for 18 years or something. I'm getting that wrong. I know that. I know he was
At least 2 decades. Yeah, I think 23 years or something.
23.
Yeah.
I think you're right. 6 children. The pictures that we pulled up when we were doing research on this guy, they're all like this. Like, look at that. Beautiful.
Isn't that horrid?
This picture right here is what so many people would aspire to and dream of. Just a loving, happy family. And by all appearances, great. But underneath, he's a completely selfish and, like I said, sociopath, psychopath, whatever you want to call it, because he's doing, let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that started to become revealed. His pornography addiction, addiction to having affairs. I mean, talk to us about like this double life he was living.
Well, and I think that's a really cool segue. And this is why I just love talking to you so much, because when you think about it from a profiling perspective, we often talk about this idea that we have 3 personas in our lives, including you and me and everyone that's listening in on this thing. We have this public persona like you and I are putting on right now, where we're trying to put our best foot forward. We're hoping people will think, this guy isn't an absolute nutcase. And so everything that we're doing publicly is the very best scene that we can put forward. But then we each have this private side of our lives. And that might be where our spouses get to see our warts, the things that, when we're ornery after a long day at work, or we don't like something that's coming off, or we don't like a response that we get, even in our companions. So we have this public side, then we have a private side. And the part that not many people see, oftentimes the victim of crime are the only ones that see it, are the secret side of our lives. And we all have them. We all have that Tasmanian devil inside of us that someone walks by that we think is attractive, and we think, oh man, I'd really like to be with that person. And then we grab ourselves and we say, what are you doing? Get yourself back in shape here, buddy. And that's not appropriate to think that way. And we correct that. But a predator doesn't. The predator just goes out and figures out how they can pull it off and get what they want. It's not about anyone else. It's always about themselves.
It's like an impulse control issue as well, right? It's like they like you just said, they see something, they want it. It will, in their selfish perspective, make their life better to do X, Y, and Z. I imagine he sat down and thought in his own head, my life would be better without my wife around. Now, like you said, most people, if that horrible thought ever even flashed into their head, they would try to squash it out immediately. But this guy goes about planning to how to actually do that. And then on top of it, the way that he plans to do it is not by, hey, I'm going to go file divorce papers, or, hey, I'm going to tell my wife that this isn't working out. It's, I'm going to actually take this woman's life, kill her, and ruin all my children's lives.
Exactly. And doesn't it make you think of a Chad Daybell who establishes and sets up the murder of his wife? She dies, but he gets to do something that he didn't expect, but maybe thought about a little bit. And that is he gets to be a victim too. I've lost my spouse. I've now got everyone's focus on me because I've lost the woman who I built this family with, when all along the idea was just get rid of this problem. And when we were kids, we would play games, and if things didn't go the way we wanted, we would yell do-overs.
Right.
Well, we can't just do-overs when you've invested a lifetime in a family and a relationship and built a life together. And yet we see this happening in some of these situations where people do put on this mask and find a way to somehow come out the victim and the person who's going to just rise above all this horror that's happened to them, when in fact what they've done is planned it from the beginning.
Incredible. I'm just, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the steps that he took and all the avenues and exit off ramps he could have had to avoid what he did, but he just barreled right through it. Johnny Knoxville, who always makes me laugh, thank you so much, my friend, says, if this guy says open up and say do not do it. Yeah, not I'm sure there were a lot of his patients after this whole story broke that thought to themselves, I wonder how close to disaster I was when this guy's handling potassium cyanide inside of his office. Talk it to us a little bit about, so the way this happens is Angela, his wife, his beautiful wife, mother of his 6 children, starts to feel headaches, starts to go dizzy, goes into the hospital, and almost immediately things take a turn for the worse. She's put on a ventilator, and within 3 days, I think she goes in on the 15th, and by the 18th, they've removed her from life support. So we're talking 3 days, perfectly healthy woman. 3 days later, she's dead. Talk to us a little bit about what police what they begin to find that leads them to the decision to file murder charges against him.
Yeah, well, I think the most telling thing that shifted the whole direction of this, because if you remember in reviewing the case, the physicians sent her home on 2 occasions saying, we're just not sure. We're going to do some CT scans. We're going to continue to monitor this. We're going to do blood tests. At one point, and I just read about this today, and I don't know if you caught on to this, Josh, but at one point, the 2 of them actually are arguing in their kitchen, and it's captured on the camera system that they've got in the house, where she's saying, hey, why did you tell the ER doc that I was suicidal? I've never been suicidal. And yet we see him early on in this thing, if the media reports are accurate, and I think that report I saw came from one of the 2 mainstream media outlets nationally, then we see him planting seeds that this person's suicidal. Now, that's really intriguing to me. And then I don't know if it was 3 days or even a few days longer, but I think it was about a week or 8 days over the course of those 3 hospital visits, 2 of which she comes home. The second time she comes home, I think, is about the time that she sends a text saying that she's concerned about poisoning, and he has to remind her, hey, I'm not poisoning you, because I know you might think that because of what happened once, or no, I'm not drugging you. I'm sorry, and thanks for, I could tell by the look on your face I was off. But then she's correcting that and saying, hey, I think maybe I'm being drugged. I don't know. And he's saying, hey, I didn't do this. I know once before you thought maybe that was going on, but things are different now. And then, of course, when we look at the behavior in these kinds of cases, we see this weird behavior happening on behind the scenes with another woman, the kinds of things he's laying out for the staff in the office about, hey, my marriage is in trouble and my wife's not happy. And all of this, we start seeing kind of what, when I was a young student in college and I was working on my associate's degree, I remembered a professor talking about in economics trial balloons, how we float these trial balloons out. Well, I was a criminal justice major. I took that and I forgot about economics, but I thought these are trial balloons that this guy's putting out to see how they float and see how people respond.
You talk about premeditation, and what does that mean? Well, this is a textbook example of it. The guy had been planning it, it sounds like now, for not just days, but weeks, by, like you said, planting these little seeds so that in his twisted view, he's thinking, if once I kill her and once the cops start looking at me, because that's likely what they're going to do, I'm going to have already established the idea that she was suicidal and that she probably, you know, I don't, that's where then the disconnect begins to start to develop, because what, she killed herself by putting cyanide into her protein shake and then hoping that, I mean, it's just awful when you start to put it all together. But whether it was his plan to poison her or not, he was at least trying to plant those seeds of suicide well in advance. Talk to us about to me it was, are you familiar with this point about how it was actually a nurse had received some information that kind of spun the investigation, that initially when she's sitting there, they don't know what's wrong with her. They're just thinking, hey, something has happened to this woman and her body is shutting down, but we don't know what it is. And then somehow there's a tip, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, everything I regurgitate comes from public sources, and
Sure.
I've been looking at what the media is publishing, but the way it unfolds and the way I understand it is that Craig tells his dental partner, hey, my wife's in the hospital and I don't think she's going to make it. And of course, his dental partner and his dental partner's wife come to the hospital to meet with them. And that's where they start having all kinds of questions come up. But then a nurse in the office happens to stumble across a package that Dr. Craig had sent to him at the office of this chemical that they believe was used in the poisoning. And he says, hey, I've got a surprise coming for my wife, or a gift coming for my wife. Just stick it in my office when it comes. Well, unbeknownst to him, one of the other office staff members actually opens the package when it comes to the office. And thank goodness she did. And she sees this hazard sticker, and all of a sudden the lights are going on. And that office member, or the wife of the partner, and I don't know which one it was, actually says to the nurse at the time she passes, hey, before you go too far, I got this concern I want to talk to you about, because this is something that we found in the office that he was ordering.
Which makes me wonder how much his office staff already was beginning to be suspicious of his character, right? Because thank God she did, but that person who opened that package, instead of just assuming, oh, well, hey, you know, the dentist is the boss and he ordered this, and for whatever reason he feels that he needs it, and it, you know, maybe I don't understand what it's used for. She thought, no, I'm going to tell somebody. Somebody needs to know about this. You know what I mean? It makes me think that other people close to him maybe were suspicious of his character.
Yeah, and I mean, wouldn't you love to be the prosecutor if he ever decides he's going to testify, to be able to start asking him about making that order, about trying to put it across as a special gift for his wife, including, I think he may have even said, it's a ring for my wife or something. And then, of course, when he's cornered on it and they say, yeah, we know what was in there, then he explains it away of, oh, yeah, it was something else, and she's been putting pressure on me. But then they've got all those communications via email on a new email address that he creates, where he's making up a story about some special surgery that he's going to do. And he's going to do some cutting edge scientific discovery that he's going to write up later. And they're going to be lucky enough to have him say that they used his drug, or that he used their drug.
Barb Murray, I love this. Thank you, Barb. First of all, says George Carlin said, out there is the world's worst doctor, and someone has an appointment with them.
Yeah.
You can apply that to criminal defense attorneys too. Out there is the world's worst criminal defense attorney, and right now he's announcing his appearance for some poor new victim. The Cemetery Wanderer, thank you so much for becoming a member. Appreciate that. All right,
Very cool.
so the cyanide, big problem, and then they start to find out more about perhaps motive. They find out about this marital issues, the pornography, obsession, the prior drugging. I mean, that one alone blows my mind. That idea that he had already demonstrated how he would take it upon himself to I don't know if the drugging was an attempt to poison her or an attempt to sedate her or whatever it was, but that was something in the history of their marriage.
Yeah, and in that one, Josh, what I read in a couple of different accounts was that he was actually thinking of committing suicide at some point and said he was going to drug her because he didn't want her to stop him, which it may be true, but it sounds like a whole bunch of malarkey when you see all the other narcissistic things that are going on. And it makes you wonder what the purpose of drugging her really was. I mean, that whole thing is really troubling.
But apparently, as bizarre an explanation as it was, apparently something she was able to live with, because they did move on with their marriage. I mean, it was that's kind of a bizarre thing to me. Here's that text message here. This is just mind blowing to me. So the blue is her text, and she's saying, and the gray is his. So she's saying, he's trying to figure out why she doesn't feel well. Have you eaten anything? She says, I had my protein shake. Magnesium makes me weird. This is not hungry. He says, are you nauseous? She says, no, I feel drugged. And then his first response, and I wonder if that's, again, wondering if this is going to become an exhibit or in the hands of a detective down the road, says no. Or he says, given our history, I know that must be triggering. Just for the record, who says that? I didn't drug you. Who types that in a text? I am super worried, though. You really looked pale before I left, like in your lips even. And then he asked for an update. So,
but I still left. I still went to work, and I'm still having lunch with my friends instead of coming home and checking on you. And
and there's nothing about their marriage in that instance. I mean, they were living together. He's making her protein shakes. They, whatever turmoil they had had in the past or even currently, it wasn't enough for them to be living separate lives.
Yeah. But and Josh, I don't know about you, but in the course of my career, especially when it came to domestic violence, homicide, domestic violence relationships, there's a really interesting thing. Angela is 100% invested in this relationship. She has 6 children. She has fears of having to go out on her own if she was even thinking that this guy's a problem and I've got to get away from him. And we see the cycle happen over and over again in domestic violence cases, domestic violence, homicide especially, where for that victim to admit that what they did, they made a bad decision. It's not a bad decision. The decision was good, just somebody in the relationship changed really frighteningly. But for her, she made a lifelong commitment to someone, and to turn around and say, hey, I was wrong, or I'm going to walk away from this, or I'm going to live in an apartment with 6 kids, or maybe 4 that are home now still. I think 2 have gone off to school. That's an awfully challenging thing to do. And it's a whole lot easier to say, I think I can make it better. I think I can figure it out. And that's what that domestic violence cycle does over and over again. And while we sometimes get critical of the victim in a domestic violence case from that perspective, and nobody thinks they deserve to be a victim, it's a reality of this idea that we think I can fix something or someone. And in this case, it doesn't appear it was possible.
That's so true. And I don't mean to sound dismissive at all. And that's not what you were saying, but I don't mean to sound dismissive at all when we say, I would have bolted for the door. No way somebody's doing that with me. You're right. things are complicated. People have entire lives they've built. You know, she may have been talking to people about leaving him, but realized how difficult that was and hoping, you know, and then, like you said, hoping beyond hope that she didn't make this mistake with a man that she built an entire life with. And now he's turning out to be a psychopath. Kat, thank you so much. Asked an off-topic question, but says that we might as well dig into your brain while we have you here. She's asked, what tools do you believe law enforcement currently lacks that will help them more successfully and efficiently work a missing person case or cold case? That's an interesting question.
Wow. Thanks, Kat. Well, maybe I'll take a little different angle than you were thinking, because I mean, there are a lot of things I think on the psychological and behavioral profiling side that would help on cases like this particular one. But the thing that I constantly pound a drum on, Josh, is that law enforcement has to move into this century when it comes to taking advantage of the true crime community. And I know that it's risky. I know that they want to keep things close to the vest, but there are things that can be done in the true crime community that they may not have resources for. Simple things like just even saying, hey, we can't find victim A's third cousin once removed, and if somebody out there knows who that is, let me know. I mean, aren't you blown away with the kinds of things that people in this community come up with? And when it comes to searching for somebody in this like missing person case, we proved this in the Suzanne Morphew case. When Suzanne's brother called me, he said, hey, could you help me organize a search for Suzanne? And, you know, I spent the last 20 years working with law enforcement on geography things. And I said, yeah, let's build a map. Let's advertise and let's get a bunch of searchers. But I said, if you're going to do this and you want my help, we have to give all the information to law enforcement. I want to track everybody in real time. And I want to have this entire thing overseen by the sheriff's office. The sheriff has to commit that he's going to have at least one deputy show up for this search that you want to do. And of course, Suzanne's brother agreed to that. We put this thing together. Josh, we had 700 people from across Colorado and other states that came in, and we used Esri technology, which was my employer after retiring from law enforcement. But we built these incredibly powerful maps that tracked 700 people in real time. And their job was, if they see something, don't touch it, just collect the physical location of it, take a picture of it, and send it back to the command center in the sheriff's office. And in real time, we were giving them this information. I think that information, when we were done and bundled it up and handed it to the sheriff, probably went on a shelf and was never looked at. Law enforcement has to get better at figuring out how to use the true crime community. And the true crime community, I think, has to back off a little bit. And especially creators have to back off a little bit on the conspiracy theories and everything else that get people ramped up, and give law enforcement true data, true content, true tips, instead of all these bizarre things that are going to maybe take them away from other things that are more important. So it's kind of a two-way street. And Kat, that's an incredibly long answer, but that's my thought.
Well, K. Schmidt gives some memberships there. We're so appreciative for that, but I could not agree more. I did not think you were going to go that direction with that answer, but I loved that answer. And somebody else had put up crowdsourcing is an incredible tool. It's absolutely true. One of the remarkable advancements that we have is the ability to pull upon the resources of millions of people all over the world. And that's like a million little detectives coming up with their different theories. And sometimes some of them are absolute gold. And I agree with you, because law enforcement, when I was in the DA's office, I experienced this all the time. They have this, and partially you can understand it, and I'm sure that you do, but there's this real skepticism about anyone who offers information. Like, if they haven't gone out and interviewed that person, when a person comes forward and says, I want to tell you X, Y, and Z, they're immediately met with skepticism. And there's this idea of like, you're just causing trouble. You're getting involved where you don't need to get involved. You're probably a crazy person that's not going to be helpful to me and going to put me on some sort of wild goose chase or something. But I agree, there does need to be a back and forth, but they certainly need to kind of broaden their idea of like how valuable an investigative tool it could be. Really, really good point.
I agree, and I'd love your opinion on this, and maybe just tell me if we've gone down a path you don't want to go down. But I'm looking at this particular trial and the court blocking us from being able to watch this thing, restream it. We saw it in other trials. We saw it happening now with Suzanne Morphew's case, that the courts, I think, because the true crime community has really probably stepped over the boundary line of reason, is causing the courts to pull back and say, we're not going to let you even watch because it just creates too much problem.
Yeah, it's nonsense. I can't, it's very frustrating. Not just because this is what I kind of do, is watch these trials, and I would love to watch them and share them with everybody else. But we're past the days of cameras being such a novelty that people act differently and can't behave, and bringing a camera into the courtroom is going to change the entire dynamic of it. We live in that age now. You talk about law enforcement catching up. How about the criminal justice system catching up? And the idea that the more you shut it down, the more it creates suspicion and distrust and a lack of transparency. I couldn't agree with you more. Let me steer us back towards this case, because there's some stuff in this I really wanted your opinion on. But so as this is going on, they find out, it's like a Hallmark movie. He's got marital problems. He's got money problems. They find out he's got gambling debts. He's on the verge of bankruptcy. He's about $2 million in debt. Then they find out about the girlfriend. He's having an affair with this woman who appears to have zero connection to this whatsoever. I want to make that abundantly clear. But this was one quote from the affidavit. While his wife, and there she is. This is the woman, Karen Kane. She did an interview with is that ABC, I think. While his wife is in the hospital breathing her last breaths, the quote from the affidavit says, it appears James was flying this woman into Denver while his wife and the mother of his children was dying in the hospital. So that's how completely demented this man was. As his wife is dying, it's like he wants to immediately step into this new life with his affair. But here's where it gets the part I wanted kind of your thoughts on. What do they find? Of course, it's like, again, this reads like a bad movie script with how many times we've seen this. They find his Google searches. And these are things like, how many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human? Is arsenic detectable? There's some of them there. Detectable in autopsy. And then a YouTube video, can't believe these exist, about making poison with the title Top 5 Undetectable Poisons That Show No Sign of Foul Play. That exists, or apparently did exist at one point. My question to you is, we're talking about advancements in technology. How are people thinking that this is still something they can get away with? Or are they so caught up in their little world that they think that they're just never going to get caught?
One of the theories that I've, or the characteristics that I've taught over and over again when I've taught anything to do with profiling is the difference between an organized criminal and a disorganized criminal. And disorganized criminals don't become organized, but you will see an organized criminal start to become disorganized when things fall apart. The fantasy isn't working out the way they wanted it, or other kinds of things. And I think what we're seeing in this particular case is this escalation of disorganization starting to happen. And the idea that I'll just go into the other office because, by golly, I want to get this done. My fantasy is this is all going to come together and it's going to work out well, but things keep coming roadblocks in the way. But now if I made up a phony email address, if I used a computer that I don't normally use, then if law enforcement seizes my computer, there's nothing on there. I mean, so you see these pieces of organization, but then you start seeing this disorganization. And those were always the things you took advantage of as a prosecutor, was being able to show how somebody starts to decompose in the middle of a crime, especially once the crime gets out of hand. Maybe the victim starts fighting, or she writes, "I feel like I'm drugged," or "Why did you say I'm suicidal?" Those kinds of things really throw the fantasy in chaos, and we start to see these people decompose. And those are the things that I always tried to take advantage of as an investigator,
Yeah.
to follow it, because to me it was always, it's more important what's not being said than what's being said.
It's desperation when they should
Yeah.
be pumping the brakes, when they should be taking things less, being more risk adverse. They're so desperate to get their fantasy fulfilled that they
Yeah.
start to, like you said, disorganize. They start to fall apart, and they start to make these little mistakes, and they start to cut corners, and that's what really starts to trip them up. And I'm going to read Sarcasm's comment here, but it's a great segue, what you just said, to what he then starts to do once he gets arrested, because talk about falling apart in the disorganization and the true colors showing through. Sarcasm, thank you so much, says, "This is why I only follow specific true crime channels. I hope we are one of those." Sarcasm. They don't try to spread conspiracy theories. They wait until the information they get is 100% verified. I don't support fake news. I agree with you, and you won't find the fake news here. Well, thank you so much, Sarcasm. So tell us because to me, if I'm his defense attorney, where I really start to lose my mind is not everything beforehand. It's like, okay, this is stuff we'll deal with. We're trying to figure it out. It's what he starts to do since he gets in jail. Can you tell us about some of that and your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, the damage control has been really interesting, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in court, because the defense, I would assume, will clearly attack the fact, well, this is an inmate just trying to get a better deal, and you can't trust what they had to say. But I think there were communications, maybe some handwritten letters, and I think early on the defense was arguing, have you done handwriting analysis on the letters, and are they truly from Craig, or are they fabricated? But I think what we're seeing are a couple of really interesting things. One is trying to come up with and not an alibi, but a story that fits his dialogue to those doctors in the hospital, if in fact he truly made that comment that she's suicidal. If he can get people, and it's being reported that he's suggesting he'll pay up to 20 grand for somebody to make up a story that she said she was suicidal, that independent people have indicated she's suicidal, that really is troubling, but it would support what his plan has been all along, to say, I'm just caught up in the horrors of a decision she made. But then also with the introduction of this information about trying to have the investigator murdered, which I'm not sure what that would have accomplished, but
good point. You're already in jail, dude. The guy's done the work. You're a little late, but joking aside, keep going.
Yeah, no. So you look at those things and you say, what's happening here, and the desperation behind what's happening here. Could you imagine being in such a corner that you think talking to another inmate and trying to contract the killing is a good idea, or to contract fabricating a story with people that don't even know this individual, and having to come up with a way to say, here's how I bumped into her at the grocery store. And, I suspect that the prosecution is going to bring in people that are next door neighbors, or that go to church with her, or hit the PTA meetings with her. And they're going to come in and say, here's the personality of Angela Craig, not someone who was saying to everyone on the street that she's never met, hey, I've been thinking about committing suicide.
Yes. And that is exactly my point too, that as much as the prosecution will concentrate on her character and how she is not a character to have ever tried to do herself any kind of harm, and was living a very healthy life, and there's no accidental reason why she would have died. And thank you, Sally Ann 22 for becoming a member, and Jay Mofo for becoming a member. But his character his character was probably the one thing that his defense had going for him. And what I mean by that is they can say, hey, he's a married man. He's got 6 kids. He's running this why in the world would he go about committing this type of crime? That's an argument. I'm not saying a winning argument, but that's at least an argument that his defense had. Now, with his conduct in custody, with the idea that he would be willing to try to bribe someone to plant evidence about her suicidal ideations, with the idea that he would go as far as to try to bribe someone to kill the detective, jurors are going to go, oh, that's the kind of guy that kills his wife.
Yeah.
The kind of guy that does this stuff is exactly the kind of guy that would kill his wife. To me, it's almost more damaging than some of the evidence we heard before. And the other evidence is incredibly damaging, but just as far as the character that he reveals himself to be since he's been in custody. What are your thoughts?
No, I think you're dead on, and hopefully the prosecution and the investigators are also bringing into play things like the moment she dies, is he texting his girlfriend or is he texting his friends? And we've seen some of the texts that have come across, some that frankly really disturb me if I'm understanding him right. Texts that suggest even that he was saying to the girlfriend, I really want to be with you and help take care of you, but I got to get rid of this problem I've got first. You got any ideas? Well, that's a little more than I have no idea that you're married and gonna leave. And yet I saw one interview where she said, hey, he told me that they were separated completely and that he was living in an apartment. And so again, this public side, secret side, those are all going to really shake out in this trial, I hope. And I think we're going to see things that really tell a sign. If he's sending a text the moment she's gone saying, oh, sadly, my wife died and glad you're in town, can we have dinner tonight? That's a lot different than I will talk to you in a month after I spend time with my kids and sort through what's just happened in my family.
Yeah. Well, here's the unfortunate part. We go through all of this, and it sounds like it would be an incredibly fascinating trial to watch. But to your point earlier, the judge has made a decision in this case that they are not, first of all, they are not allowing video cameras for any part of the actual presentation of evidence. They are allowing videotaping of opening statements, closing arguments, and the verdict. Okay, fine, we can work with that. Here's the additional problem. They're not allowing streaming of that. So we've looked into this, everybody who's wondering. We actually contacted the courts. We tried to get media credentials for the whole thing, which we were happy to do. But then we found out that those media credentials wouldn't even allow us to stream it. So I don't know. I believe there's going to be a pool camera. And if there is a pool camera, we're going to stream it. But if there's not a pool camera, then the only thing that the media access allows you is to watch it, and then you can go report on it later. So they've really shut this thing down, which doesn't make any sense to me, to your point. But to everybody watching, if we can put it up, check out Courtroom Confidential live trials, and it will be there if we're able to do it. But it's still kind of a shoot from the hip, last second thing that whether or not we will get any actual footage of this thing to show you all, which is very frustrating. Mike,
hey, Josh, I have a question quickly for you. And that is, I'm really surprised they got through a jury today and that the judge didn't give counsel a little more time after his second attorney stepped away from counsel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So his second attorney, I'm glad you brought that up. So first he had a set of attorneys. They dropped out the second that they realized they were probably being used in some sort of way for him to coordinate the attempted murder of the detective. When they realized that, my suspicion is that somehow he was using them to, hey, could you hand this letter to so-and-so or whatever it was? And they're like, we're done. They drop out. He gets court-appointed attorneys, and then his court-appointed attorney has had a little bit of trouble on his own. Robert Working was arrested just this month for felony arson. Apparently, he had lit his own house on fire, and he's seeking mental health treatment. There he is on the left. That's his wife on the right, who is also his law partner. Her name is Ashley Witham. She's going to continue on. So you're right. I guess the judge was like, I don't care what's happening. People are dropping out. People are getting arrested. You're continuing forward with this trial. And you're right.
Yeah.
They picked a jury, picked it today, opening statements tomorrow morning.
So is it an appeal item?
Well, that's a great question. I think the appellate courts will probably view the judge's decision favorably. I think that what they will probably view is that you cannot create your own appealable issue. They will probably view this as a problem of the defense attorneys and the fact that he had other attorneys who have been working on the case and should be qualified to step in. I think that'll probably save the judge. But I agree with you. I could have seen a lot of other judges giving them a little more time and saying, hey, just to avoid any issues here, I'm going to give you, 30 more days, something like that. But to answer your question, it will, if he is convicted, they're going to appeal on that issue. Whether or not they'll be successful, I'm sure that will become something they try to argue.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Mike, before I let you go, please tell us about your new book. I'm so excited for you on this. It is again called Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. There's the book there. And it's a book about predators, human predators, and how they manipulate and behind these masks of normalcy. And I just thought, what a perfect topic for what we're discussing this evening.
Well, thanks for mentioning it. And I actually wrote it for the true crime community in a couple of ways. I mean, again, I love coming on your show because it's a show of balance where we talk about the pros and cons and let people make decisions on their own. But it's about exposing predators who are out operating in plain sight, about how they justify their actions or the victim selection process they go through, the ways in which they kind of blend into our communities without raising suspicion. And I kind of boil the whole thing down based on decades of working in law enforcement, spending a lot of time working with cult leaders who I think are pros at being wolves in sheep's clothing, but the serial offenders and other kinds of manipulators. So the idea is help people recognize some of the warning signs. And I think most importantly, Josh, that vigilance isn't paranoia, it's protection. And we could take advantage of being a little bit smarter. Listen to that voice that's telling you run instead of thinking, oh, I'm making more out of this than there is.
I love it. And I love the cover too. It's going to give me nightmares. I love the cover, but it is going to give me nightmares. And we have the link to the book for everybody who's interested. Please check it out. Mike, thank you again, my friend. You're fantastic. This was a really great conversation, and I'm so glad that you were able to carve out some time for us.
Oh, man, it's always great to be with you. Thank you. Thanks to the team there.
Oh, absolutely. Take care, my friend.
All right, Josh. Good night.
Love that guy. Such a fascinating guy, such a incredible career that he had. If you want to learn more about him, by the way, we did do an interview with Mike as part of our conversation series. So we'll send you a link for that as well. Go check it out. You can hear about his whole life, how he got involved in investigating cults. Just an amazing, amazing guy. Annalie Finch, thank you so much. I know you're not becoming a member. I think you're upgrading your membership. So thank you so much for that. Do we have anybody else that I missed that I want to thank? And then I'll jump into just some other news topics that I wanted to catch you guys up on before I let you go this evening, before I ring the bell and release you from class. All right. That was James Craig. Here's some other things that, on maybe not as heavily followed cases, but cases that we have talked about on this channel before. First of all, a man by the name of Samuel Bond Haskell. This was a case that took place here in the Los Angeles area. He lived in Tarzana with his wife. Her name was May Lee Haskell. She was 37 years old. In 2023, he hires some day laborers to dispose of some garbage bags. One of the day laborers looks into the garbage bag and finds human body parts. So big investigation is done, and they realize that his wife, May Lee, along with her parents, Gao Shan Li and Yanjing Wang, pardon me, have all been missing. And he murdered all of them and dismembered them and put them in garbage bags. And then, again, I don't know if you want to chalk it up to stupidity or what Mike was talking about with this incredible kind of disorganization that begins to take place, or if it's just flat out laziness. He hires people to dispose of the bags instead of doing it himself. He hires people to dispose of the bags, and that is how it is revealed. And then on top of this, you find out who he is. He is a person who came from incredible wealth and privilege. His father is a very famous Hollywood agent. His name is Sam Haskell. He's the Samuel Bond Haskell, I guess, is a junior. So Sam Haskell Sr. Was represented such clients as Whoopi Goldberg, Dolly Parton, George Clooney. You may have heard of these people. The guy's living with a wealthy upbringing, well-connected to Hollywood, and decides for whatever reason that he needs to kill and murder his wife and his mother and father-in-law and try to dispose of their bodies. When police arrest him, they arrest him with a passport and a one-way ticket to Japan. They find the murder weapon, which has all the victims' DNA on it. He's got $67,000 in cash. And they also find out that he has a 27-year-old mistress. Why do I bring this case up? He was arrested several months ago. Well, I bring this up because his prelim was supposed to take place this week. And instead, he was found dead in his cell on Saturday. So it looks like he decided to end things himself. And the thing that astonishes me about his psychology about all of this is that it sounds like what motivated him to take that drastic step of self-harm was not the fact that he'd been accused of murder, because he's been sitting in prison for 2 years. Not the fact that he's going to likely spend the rest of his life in prison, but the idea that it would become revealed that he had been carrying on an affair with a 27-year-old all that time. I don't know what you want to call that. I don't know what makes people like this tick. Johnny Knoxville says, not to put you on the spot, Josh, what do you think of Kathleen Zellner and her work to exonerate people like Stephen Avery? You're not putting me on the spot, but my answer is I don't know. I'm not familiar with it. So maybe you are putting me on the spot, but I will definitely look into it more. I know that there is a big movement of people who feel, oh, wait a minute. Is this the documentary series? Is she the creator behind it? The Making a Murderer series? Am I understanding this? I'm going to wait until people answer me in the comments. But if I am aware of it, I will give you some quick reaction thoughts on that. I don't know. Yes. Eileen B says yes. Yes, that's correct, says Johnny Knoxville. Okay. I was fascinated by that series, Making a Murderer. I thought it was incredibly well done. And then I don't know if you're or aware of this, but there was a kind of response series done to that. And I forget what it's called, but they like played off the same name. It wasn't Making a Murderer. It was like, I forget what it was. Maybe you guys know. But it was interesting, kind of a criticism of the original documentary series and things that they may have left out and things that they may have convicting a murderer. That's what it was, Kat. Things that may have been reported in a skewed manner, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to weigh in because I don't know enough about the actual underlying facts. I tell you who does know is Anjanette Levy. If you want to know where Anjanette got her start, watch Making a Murderer, because she's all over it, because she was one of the reporters who was first covering that case. But I would say an interesting thing to do, an interesting kind of exercise to put yourself through, is to watch Making a Murderer and then watch Convicting a Murderer. And they both have interesting perspectives on the same set of issues and facts. And so great question, Johnny, though. All right. What else do we got here? Donna Adelson has an update. She had a pretrial hearing on Friday. The judge ordered that the raw, unredacted data from emails and cell phone records be turned over to the defense. And you may be saying, well, isn't this a bit late in the game? Yes, it is. They're saying that they had all of the prosecution said we turned all that over. Defense says you didn't turn over the raw data. We want that to double check what Celebrite did. They're entitled to that. Why the prosecution didn't turn that over months ago, I think, is a problem. Are they going to find a smoking gun and all of that? No. But here's the problem. You've now given the defense something to complain about. Why not just turn over all that raw nonsense and let them go through it? And then they can't complain. But now they can complain, and the judge is saying, I'm requiring you to turn that over. The judge also added, though, there's perhaps a problem swimming around all of this. Here's the quote from Judge Stephen Everett, one of my favorite judges. Look at that guy. Even look at the look on his face. How could you not love this dude? He says, as far as giving conflict-free representation to Mrs. Adelson, should anything change with your review of the Celebrites that may include communications from prior counsel or deal with matters that pertain to information that's provided by Charles Adelson, at that point, we're going to have to revisit the issue. So he's saying, what I don't want happening is them turning over all this stuff and you get a bunch of privileged communications between Charlie Adelson and Dan Roshbaum, and all of a sudden we're in the same problem where we were before, where if Charlie Adelson really is going to be a potential witness in this case, I don't want there being issues where this current defense team is now tainted by having seen information they shouldn't see, which will somehow affect this case moving forward. So the judge not playing any games. The final pretrial hearing on this is set for August 8th. I don't even know if I want to put this out in the universe, but I'm going to say it anyways. I have a sneaking suspicion it's not going to start on August 8th. That the final pretrial hearing, pardon me, is on August 8th. Trial is set already. I have a feeling we're going to see a delay. And that's because it's just the discovery's not done. There's this raw, unredacted data that the defense still hasn't received. They're going to get that. They're going to hand that over to an expert. That expert's going to say, I need 120 days to go through all this nonsense. I hate to say it. I think it's going to happen. Kathy tells me to hush up. I'm going to hush up, Kathy, after I say one more thing. The prosecution is also saying that they have like handwriting expert reports that they don't even have back yet. So even the prosecution doesn't have everything. I'm just telling you right now, this judge is a great judge. He's a smart judge. He also knows where there are problems, and he's going to say, I need to give them a delay. I'm sorry, Kathy. Please don't yell at me. Please don't throw things at me. Shy Goodness 87, thank you so much. Says, thank you, Josh. Love your guests in chat. Oh, you're very sweet. I appreciate you doing that and saying that. All right, last one on this. Another interesting case that started, trial started today. This is a case out of Lacey, Washington. The named defendants here, you may have seen this, are Ihsan Ali and Sarah Ali. I know I'm probably mispronouncing those names, so please forgive me. But they are the mother and father of a young woman who is unnamed. On October 18th of 2024, outside of Timberland High School, they began to strangle their own daughter because she refused to travel to Iraq for an arranged marriage to an older man. So this is one of those attempted honor killings, is what they're calling it. We're going to play you some of the video. I'm just going to warn you, it's a little disturbing. I'm going to warn you there's some foul language used in it, but I wanted you guys to see where this is all coming from. Oh, and Psychosaurus Rex says her name is Fatima. So our hearts go out to her. Here's the video for you guys now. Nope. Hold on. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. Are we just having trouble? Oh, here we go.
No, she looked like she was getting she couldn't breathe, dude. Let's go. Yeah, they're on their way.
Wow. I know it was a little difficult to see there. There is some other video I think that shows maybe more of it a little more clearly, but what you're seeing there is the father and mother of this young woman attacking her in public, in broad daylight, outside of her school, in front of all her classmates, and according to prosecutors, with the absolute intent of taking her life. This wasn't about punishing her. This wasn't about humiliating her. This wasn't about disciplining her. This was about an attempt to take her life. According to witnesses, he's got his hands wrapped around her. Mother is holding her down so father can wrap his hands around her throat with the attempt to take her life. Now, one report I've heard but not confirmed, so don't if I'm wrong on this, let me know. But what I'm being told is that the judge is not going to allow the idea that this was a attempted honor killing or that there was an arranged marriage in Iraq and that's what she was being attacked for by her parents. And so you might say, well, why in the world not? I think what's going on here, if this is in fact true, is that the judge, and probably rightfully so, realizes that injecting that issue into this whole trial is going to spin this into something else entirely for the jurors. They're immediately going to have reactions. Maureen says I'm right. They can't say it. So they're immediately going to have reactions about, along religious lines, along cultural lines, along all a bunch of stuff that they should not be considering. Now, from a prosecutor's perspective, I'm saying, well, Your Honor, truth is the truth, and they need to know the motivation for this. Why else? We're trying to prove murder here. We're not just trying to prove discipline here. We need the jurors to understand what they were motivated by to do this. Judge is saying, and again, we haven't seen the actual rulings on this, but judge is saying, I hear you, but I also have to weigh probative versus prejudicial value here. And as probative as it may be to understand motive is not something you actually have to prove here. And therefore, the prejudicial value of the underlying cultural and religious issues might be too much for the jurors to get past and be able to understand how they can use it and how they can't use it. I think that's what's at play. Probably a good decision by the judge, even though it's likely frustrating to the prosecutors. But there were other acts of prior violence, and apparently she does run inside the school screaming, my dad was trying to kill me. He was trying to kill me. So I think they have plenty of evidence of what this attack was actually about. So that case is going on right now. We'll keep you guys updated as much as we can to all of that. Malibu Table Maven, hello. Good to see you. She says, horrific, disgusting. I agree. Absolutely beyond something we can wrap our heads around when you see this kind of violence, especially against parents against their children. The only people in the entire world whose jobs are to protect this young woman, and they're the ones who are going about trying to harm her. All right, let me get to some announcements for you guys, and then I'll get you out of here. First of all, please, if you haven't already, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are trying to build up our audience on some of these platforms so that we can continue to provide new content there. And some of these platforms require a certain amount of subscribers before we have the ability to share certain things with you. So if you don't already, please follow us on Facebook at Courtroom Confidential, on X at CR Confidential, and on Instagram at the Courtroom Confidential. We appreciate all of your support. It's a great, easy way to support us. What you missed this weekend. Saturday, we had our weekly roundup. We talked about there we go. We talked about the Raul Valle case. We talked about Diddy. We talked about James Craig, one of the world's greatest mugshots, if you ask me. The lighting on that is just chef's kiss. And we talked a little bit about Corey Richins. That's already out on the channel, so please check it out. And then Sunday Funday. We had a fantastic Sunday Funday. Hope that you guys were there. If you weren't, please check it out now. We talked a lot about Brian Kohberger, but a bunch of other cases that you would not have seen coming. And one case that is continuing to haunt me is a case out of Germany where a elderly woman, I'm going to say, what was she? In her 90s, 80s, killed her 77-year-old friend over melted ice cream. I am not oversimplifying the facts here. I am giving them to you exactly as they played out in court. 90-year-old woman, I see the comments were. 90-year-old woman convicted for the murder of her 77-year-old friend over melted ice cream. If that's not a headline, I don't know what is. So we talked a little bit about that case and many, many other cases. A guy convicted for flooding, causing a catastrophe, all sorts of stuff that you wouldn't see coming. Oh, yeah. And we had a special guest appearance from our friend, Ian Runkle. So please give him a shout out if you haven't already, and tell him how much you appreciated him making an appearance on the show. So check that out. Patty L says Sunday Funday was awesome. Thank you, Josh. Well, thank you so much, Patty L, for being there. And when is it not fantastic? Thank you, JC Broadway. Appreciate that. All right. Coming up, stay tuned this week, Tuesday. Like I said, if we can make it happen, if we can get the bunny ears set up just right and we're able to tune in to the James Craig trial, we will do it for you. So stay posted. We'll let you know as soon as we do, but that will be over on our sister channel, Courtroom Confidential Live Trials. This Wednesday, we have a very special guest for you, a favorite of all of yours. We're going to have Matt Murphy on, former prosecutor out of Orange County. Fabulous dude, smart guy, great hair, and a friend of mine. And we're going to be talking about Kohberger. I just want to get his reactions. He's got some strong feelings about the Kohberger case. He does not, him and I do not see the resolution of that case entirely the same. But I encourage that, and I want to hear his thoughts. So we're going to talk a little bit about Brian Kohberger, about Sean Diddy Combs, how that tragedy ended up, on what the prosecutors did wrong. And then, by the way, there's some new Menendez brothers updates. I didn't get into it tonight because I wanted to save it for Wednesday and get his reactions on that. But Matt always has some pretty strong and well put together thoughts on these cases. So that will be Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, the same time as tonight, just on Wednesday night. Saturday, we're going to have our weekly roundup, as always, at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. That's a live premiere. And then for those of you who are in our members group, we are having our members only live. That is for what level is that for Tiffany? I'm sorry. I should have known this ahead of time. I think it's for our classified and above, says Tiffany. For classified level and above, this Saturday, we're doing our members only live, our July members only live. And we talk about a bunch of fun and goofy stuff. What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you cooking? Here's a goofy story about something that I experienced in my time as a prosecutor. Here's a goofy story about when I was a defense attorney. Oh, Johnny Knoxville coming in hot with the guest, with the guests on the shirt. This is, of course, my Courtroom Confidential t-shirt. Is it sage? Oh, Kaylin says no. She says, no, it's not sage. What color is it, Tiffany? Jumping the gun, Johnny. Sunday, of course, we're going to do another Sunday Fun Day. And next week is going to be literally wearing the same one, says Flor. Oh, it's light green. Light green. Well, I love the color, but light green is not a very inventive color. I like sage. Sage sounds like a good name for this. Next week, I'm going to be back in Boise. They're sending me back to Boise again to cover the sentencing for Brian Kohberger. So I will be up there Monday through Thursday or longer. And we're going to be doing our best to give you the same schedule as we have this week. Maybe some differences. Maybe I'll be doing a hotel room Wednesday night live again. I don't know. All TBD, but that's where I'll be next week. So please make sure to tune in to see what shenanigans we're up to. The sage is wearing sage, says Maureen. All right, guys. That's everything I got. Go to the shop to buy this sage shirt. Go to thecourtroomconfidential.com to sign up for the membership so that you can be a part of our members only live this Saturday, where we get into a bunch of goofiness that we don't usually talk about here on the channel. Go on thecourtroomconfidential.com to leave us a message for this coming Sunday Fun Day. Love all the questions that you guys come up with. Of course, thank you. Big thank you to our mods, Afton and Sonia and Kathy. You guys make this all run so smoothly. So thank you so much. And that's it. That's all I got, guys. Happy Monday. I'll see you again on Wednesday. Take care, everybody.